don't often make videos about myself, but it's time for an update to my About Me pinned post. So here goes. This could lose me some followers. Content warning, I have no respect for sexual convention. There are two parts to the update. First, I am now 1 semester into a Masters in Literature and Creative Writing at Western Sydney University, and loving it. On a path I hope will lead to a PhD. Second, I am no longer in the long-term relationship I was in last year. Ending it wasn't my choice, but before you come to commiserate, I'm good with it. We will stay friends, and his decision releases me to my natural condition, which is polyamory. Here's where I encourage you to scroll on if you're not into intimate confessions from older women, or if you approve only of long-term monogamous unions. I will be discreetly but deliberately oversharing for educational purposes. Trolls who come with inappropriate metaphors, be warned. Your replies will be posted to a group called On Today's episode of What Inanimate Object Are Women Being Compared To, so that 50,000 people can sneer at you. Do your best. People talk about being married, in a relationship, or dating, as if everyone needs to know, because we kind of do. It affects how we relate to each other. But as soon as your relationship status falls outside those conventional parameters, some people consider even a basic label too much information. If you're made of stronger stuff than that, pull up a chair, because I'm going to tell you about my love life, and like nearly everything else about me, it's deliciously complicated. I started dating as a teenager in the late 70s, when even for adults, living together unmarried was still, at least here in Australia, not quite the norm. Virginity was an important social commodity for girls. Who you chose to give it to could define your life. So because the internet didn't exist and young people's access to hardcore porn was rare and usually just in a magazine, prolonged necking, petting, and even oral sex, all without coitus, was pretty normal for quite a lot of teens. I highly recommend this practice to anyone, especially young people, wanting to have some fun together without the political, emotional, and biological complications of intromissive sex. If, that is, the two, or however many of you, can establish the necessary ground rules and trust. I could make a whole video about how to manage not going all the way, if anyone wants it. Your little sister? In my 20s, I was serially monogamous, mostly faithful, in relationships lasting from a few months to a few years. I married at 27, believing I knew what I was doing, and divorced at 33, promising myself I'd never do it again. It wasn't that he was bad to me, he really wasn't. I'll skip over why it all fell apart, but it was misconceived on both sides in the first place. It was just that if I couldn't make it forever the first time, if that ideal wasn't to be for me, then I didn't see the point of doing it at all. Turns out I'm a child of the revolution. If I try really hard but the rules just aren't working for me, I throw them out. From my 30s on, these have been my rules of sexual engagement. Everybody is a free agent. People who cheat on their prior commitments should be regarded with caution. All terms are up for negotiation based on an ethics of mutual respect. A liaison lasts as long and goes as deep as it's meant to, and everyone should be clear about the terms before, or not too long after, the first clinch. There were a few more rules whenever I had a primary partner, which was most of the time, though not always the same one. Through my 30s and 40s, I had some 24 lovers, maybe more. The longest of these associations lasted more than 10 years. There was another of 9 years, they overlapped by 4, 2 more of 4 years each, a couple of 6 months, several of 3 months, and a handful of 1 to 3 night stands. For reasons I'm not entirely sure of, but more by accident than design, all those men were younger than me, unlike my partners in the serial monogamy years, who were all older. Turns out a fit 40-something woman looking for uncomplicated fun has quite a field of 20 and 30-something men to explore. Fascinating creatures, men. Fascinating. I say this not to brag. God knows it'll get me as much hate as respect. but to tell the truth about what is possible as a woman when you rebuild your sexual ethics from the ground up, if your ground is love, truth, and freedom, and you are a massive hornbag. And then I discovered, through an accident of circumstance, that the changes that came with menopause made non-cohabiting monogamy possible for me. Late in my 40s, I was camping by the beach in my combi in a fishing village surrounded by National Park a couple of hours from home. I fell in with a local who wouldn't let me go, and again, I'll spare you the saga of how we ended up together for 13 years despite our radical differences. Suffice to say, his devotion was legendary, and I have only good words for him, and solid credit to him for knowing when to call it a day. I'm not an easy package for any one man. For now, I'm still well out of the game. I have options I'm not pursuing. I'm resting and reorganizing, studying and working. I have a lot going on that isn't about sex. In fact, this last few months is the longest I've been celibate in decades, and the longest ever that it's been by choice, a compensation of maturity. The dramatic postmenopausal drop in sex drive is exhilarating if you're not still obliged to serve a loved one's needs. Finally, there is space in my life for everything else. So this post is information, advice, truth-telling, and hopefully entertainment, but it's not advertising. Don't make that mistake. Some things I've learned in 2 decades of polyamory and 2 of serial monogamy, for what it's worth. Honesty is key. Everyone needs to know where they stand, and everyone needs to consent in full knowledge. This is the essential difference between polyamory and infidelity. A polyamorous woman is safer if she has a primary partner, but only if she has equal or greater power to set the terms of their relationship, including how they engage with others. Polyamorous couples develop their own rules. One of my personal favorites is if you go to a party together, you go home together. If you meet someone you want to hook up with, make a date for later. Don't leave your main squeeze publicly deserted. These little care protocols protect both of you as well as your bond. Without a primary partner, you may be safer in the scene, at parties and clubs run by other poly people, because your safety is protected there by professional codes. But humans being humans, sometimes this clubbing together can produce all sorts of fancy exclusionary rules, which to me are not in the open anarchic spirit of true polyamory. I prefer simply to do the many different things I love doing, meet the diverse people who also love those things, and get to know them a little or a lot. The hardest thing about polyamory is the scheduling, or at least it is when you're young. Just as the nature of marriage changes between youth and maturity, so it goes with an open love life. Sometimes, as happened with me for a while, someone makes you an offer you can't refuse. Several of my women friends, polyamorous or not, having lived with various men all their adult lives, now live alone by choice and consider it luxury. I find 3 months is a nice length for an affair, long enough to get the measure of each other and a sense of whether your future needs and expectations are aligned. That said, it's not a rule, might be different for you. Every relationship, every encounter between souls is unique, and there is no minimum time limit. So that's my update. Uni is great and life is busy and fun. Thanks for listening all the way. Talk to me in the comments, ask me anything, and please like, follow, subscribe, and support.